What's up, everyone? Welcome to Treadmill Talks today. It's 5:26. Doing Treadmill Talks here. Do these every week. At least try to. I got back to it last week. Here for 45 minutes, me just walking on a treadmill, talking football with you guys. Thanks for showing up and hit that like and subscribe. Drop your questions in there. If you have questions for me on the YouTube, I'd love to answer your questions, engage with you guys. If you got trade questions, player evaluation questions, general football questions, let me know. I'd love to answer them for you. We're going to get started today, but hopefully my power holds out. We've had some storms here in Wisconsin. Whoa, losing my camera. A lot of people lost power this week. So it's raining right now. It's kind of a dreary day out there. Hopefully the power stays on, internet stays on. Hopefully I can get my treadmill talking with you guys. Again, nothing fancy, me just walking on a treadmill talking football with you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So let's dive in. Last week I talked rookies. This week what I want to talk about is something very special, something I've been working on for a long time that I just launched this week. And it's what I call the B.R.O.W.S.E system. And it is a roster building and management tool that I've been developing now for about a year. Spent the last kind of 6 to 8 months really working the numbers, that kind of stuff. And so what B.R.O.W.S.E stands for is balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement. So B.R.O.W.S.E, it's an acronym for it. And what that means is when you're building your roster or managing your roster, you want to balance those two things out. How reliable a player is in terms of the volume they're going to get and the production from that volume versus how exciting and how spiky that guy is. How many boom bust weeks are they going to have? It's a system that I've always used internally in my head when balancing rosters and building rosters. And I just kind of last year was on a Python, started talking about it, kind of came up with this name, and then started building it this year. So I just released it. You can find it on my Twitter, the DUnit13. I have a Patreon. Right now, there are select early bird spots, only $1.99 a month, get you full access. It's got a sheet. It's got over 700 offensive players on it. It has that master sheet. It has a player comparison tool, which I'll show you guys in a little bit, where you can compare 4 players side by side, look at their scores, and also has a team tracker where you can put your team in, see what kind of players you are. Now, what I like about B.R.O.W.S.E and the way I use it, and the way I think it should be used, obviously as a creator, is it's not necessarily a rankings tool. It's not going, well, this guy's got a higher RO score, reliability is an opportunity, or a higher SE score. That's who you should take. It's all about how you want to build your rosters. Some people love those spiky weeks. They want to be the guy that's going to go out there and they want to set the record for most points every week. And they're in this team where it's a kind of a glass cannon where it's either all or nothing, right? And they go out and they either, one week they put up 300 points, next week they put up 90. And that's kind of like, they like that kind of fluctuation. Someone like me, who's a little more risk adverse, doesn't like that. I like a little more safer floor, safer consistency production for my guys. So I might take guys with a higher RO score, which is reliability and opportunity. So again, the B.R.O.W.S.E system is balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement. Now, just because I'm risk averse doesn't mean I have no spikes and excitement. Just means I balance maybe a little more on that end. So that's what's nice about this tool. Depending on how you want to build your roster, it's going to determine what kind of players you take. For me, I want to work heavy on the consistency, but I'll take 1 or 2 guys, maybe in the later rounds, maybe in the mid rounds, that have a higher SE, spikes and excitement score, and kind of go from there. So I released this system this week. You can find it. I released it on Patreon. Eventually, it also is going to go on Dynasty Pros once we get the website up and running. Hopefully, that'll happen this week. Right now, there's a few select spots left at $1.99 a month. After that's going to go up to $3.99 a month. Don't think it's a bad thing for a premium tool. It's great for all things Dynasty. It'll tell you kind of what you're expecting this year. Redraft, again, this year. Best ball, it'll tell you who kind of has the potential to be spiky. That kind of stuff. So how I come up with these numbers. What I did is I went back and looked at last year's stats. Now, there's plenty of consistency scores out there, and I think they're good tools, right? The footballers have one. Bob Lung has one. What's different about B.R.O.W.S.E and the RO score you get from B.R.O.W.S.E is that it's not singular. A lot of consistency scores are singular. They go there, how consistently were they an RB1? Or how consistently did they do X? I looked at at least three statistical categories per position. So I'm not going to tell you what all of them are because I can't give away the secret sauce, but things like fantasy points, but also things, rushing attempts, targets, passing attempts, things that show what their potential output can be. Because here's the thing. If you're a receiver, If you get 11 targets, you may only catch 8 one week, but if you get 11 the next week, you may catch 10. Because the difference between a catch and not a catch often is a game of inches. We talk about football being a game of inches all the time. So I wanted to bake it in. So I didn't look at a lot of true production, like receptions. I went with targets because that's an opportunity that they had to produce. Now, they may not have capitalized on that opportunity, but at least they got that opportunity. And we looked over last year's stats across the board. Get into the math a little bit. We did standard deviation. Then basically how many times were they in that standard deviation to kind of give them their norm. That kind of gave us our RO score, kind of a consistency score in the basics of terms. Then we looked at how often are they outside of that standard deviation in one standard deviation, then the second standard deviation to give us our SE spikes and excitement score. Part of spikes and excitement is also how often do they not disappoint you. So there are games above their standard deviation versus games under their standard deviation. Knocked the points, we kind of weighed the two against each other. Again, over across 3 statistical categories per position, all based on last year's stats. Now, are last year's stats always predictive of this year's stats? Question I had going into it. Now, if you know me, data modeling and stuff is not my forte. It's not something I really enjoy doing all that much. There's people out there that are way better at me. So I reached out to some of these guys and looked at some of the research they did. Guys like Ryan Heath. And what are the more sticky stats from year to year? And what we did is we looked at those and found what I thought were the best 3 to 4 markers per position in terms of predictive for next year. So if you look at some of the research, you go, okay, is opportunities a predictive? Is that a sticky stat? It's pretty sticky. Now, nothing's 100%. That's just the way fantasy football and football is, right? If anything was 100%, we'd have guys out there winning millions of dollars because they would know. But we found the stats that we thought were the most sticky from year to year as predictive stats. That doesn't mean that those stats are always going to hold true. Things change. I've gotten to this mindset where you can't always look at last year's stats because I think what happens is sometimes we look at last year's stats, we throw out certain things because of coaching or changes, but we also use it. We go, well, things have changed, so things are going to be different. Everything is different year to year. A team is never 100% the same year to year. So everything's going to be different, but we do our best to predict what we think is going to happen based on last year. So we look at someone like Drake London. Took his stats from last year. How much is it going to change this year? I don't know. I looked at a lot of these guys and looked at their projections on Fantasy Pros, their expert consensus projections, right? Looked at other sites for all their projections. And all their projections are kind of within the same numbers of what we already have. And so we didn't really feel like we need to go with that. Because projections for this year are going to be swayed slightly by what happened in the offseason, but they're not going to change a ton. There was a couple people where it changed drastically. Now, I didn't look at all 707 or 708 people on the sheet. Don't have time for that, but I looked at a handful, especially the guys that move situations or had situation changes, whether that's quarterbacks or change teams or new coaches, offensive coordinators, those sort of things. Looked at the projections, kind of look at their average and what their standard deviation would be based on those projections. Realized it was kind of within the same realm. So you're not going to see a guy go from, let's say, oh, we had 5 targets a game last year, but also he's going to average 10. It just doesn't happen. No matter what the upgrades to me, it just doesn't work that way. And no projections projected that way. There's a couple of people, Keenan Allen, some of the projections were way lower than what it was, changing teams, more target competition, but still wasn't that far out of the realm of what a standard deviation was that we felt it factored our thing too much. Question is going to be, what did I do for rookies? What did I do for some other players? Let's talk about that. So for rookies, I used their college stats from last year. Now, is college always predictive of the NFL? No, because, right, small schools, different level of competition. But I think college stats can give us an insight into what someone's production might be in maybe the best case scenario, right? So Marvin Harrison, what do you do in college? Probably a little predictive of what he could do in the correct scenario in the NFL or more. So we use college stats. Now, guys like Aaron Rodgers, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb, guys who didn't have enough time in 2023 to give me enough data samples. I went back and looked and said, all right, let's get them all to 6 games is basically what I did. So I went back to 2022 and got them to 6 games. I didn't take out injury games because for fantasy, we don't know injuries are going to happen. If you had Aaron Rodgers week 1 of 2023, you started him. Hands down, you started him, he injured, he basically bust for you. So we kept that game in there, even though he only played 4 snaps. we added 5 games from 2022 to get them to a 6-game sample size. So we had enough data to create their B.R.O.W.S.E numbers, their R.O. score, which is reliability and opportunities, and their S.E score, which is their spikes and excitement score. So we did that for everyone. Now, on the sheet, you'll see this in a little bit. There are going to be players who still don't have scores. One, we have 700 and some odd players, over 700 players in B.R.O.W.S.E. Some of these players are not getting drafted. So, because I went back and go, they didn't play in 2023 and they didn't play in 2022, so they have no numbers. If they're that way, they're probably not getting drafted anyway. Let's be real. Unless you're in like a super duper 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 deep league, you're not drafted in the 3rd string quarterback for the Chiefs. It's just not happening. So those guys I didn't feel like that much. What B.R.O.W.S.E is also not is a rankings tool. When we show you the sheet, when I show you the sheet in a little bit, what you'll see is fullbacks have very high scores. Partially because they play every game, but they consistently get 0. So you can consistently be unproductive. And the problem is that shows you as the top like 10 scores, I think, are mostly fullbacks. That shows for RO because they're consistently playing snaps, but getting no carries, no touches, no yards, no touchdowns, no nothing. Well, it doesn't mean you should take those guys over someone who's playing. It's just a matter of you have to look at it in tiered players. So when you're looking at tiered players, and I'll show you this on the player comparison tab, you have to be looking at like players or players that you're considering in your draft. Same thing with SE score. So fullback sometimes will also have a huge SE score because realistically, if you play 9 games at 0, and then you have 8 games where you get 2 carries and a touchdown, your SE score, like you're min-maxing basically that. So you have the minimum for 9 games, the maximum times you have this huge score. Happens that way. So again, you have to look at it not as a ranking sheet. It's a tool to help you make the decisions when you're basically tied on players in the same tier. So that's the B.R.O.W.S.E system. We're going to talk a little more about it. I got about 45 minutes, so doing this for about 10, so about another 30 minutes, 35 minutes talking B.R.O.W.S E. But if you've got questions, drop it in the comments. We'd love to talk about your teams, your trades, your players you want to know. If you don't, we're just going to keep talking about B.R.O.W.S E. I'm going to show you a little bit about it, give you guys kind of a run through of it. Again, you can find it on my Twitter. It's pinned to my profile. It's the B.R.O.W.S E system. It's a roster building and management tool, which is good for Dynasty, Redraft, and Best Ball. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to show you my screen and show you what B.R.O.W.S E looks like. So this here is the master sheet of B.R.O.W.S E. This is one where we have over 700 offensive players. Now, I'm working on defense. I don't play IDP, so I'm working with some IDP folks who know IDP, building out IDP. Maybe we'll have for this season. Probably not. It's not really something I'm got a ton of time to invest into. Again, I've been doing this for 6 months, so if I spend another 6 months doing IDP, which will be over 700 players, probably looking at 1,000, if not more. It'll take me some time. So this is what B.R.O.W.S E looks like on the master sheet. And so what you see here is you see players, their position, their RO score, which is their reliability and opportunity score, and their SE score. Color-coded the normally way. Red is bad. The deeper the red, the brighter the red, the worse it is. Green is good. The brighter and bolder and deeper the green is, it's good. So if you're looking at this, you can see Adam Payton has a really high R score. Again, fullback who plays a lot and is consistently bad. That is what it looks like for RO score. So you can go through this, all 700 people in alphabetical order, and go, oh, what's their score? What's the score? So when you're looking, you go, okay, what's this guy's score? Bing, bang, boom. What's this guy's score? When you subscribe, you get access to this. You can scroll through, and it's the whole list of them, all the way through 770 of them. You see all the way down here. We got Antonio Gibson. Red looks like a 0.39. Now, the highest you could score is a 1.0. Obviously, that's 100%. It's a 0.39 in RO score, but a 0.42 in SE score. Now, you would think possibly that you're either going to be good at one or good at the other and bad at the other. That's not always the case. A lot of times it is. Again, you can have 9 games, which is more than half of consistency, and 8 games where you're basically super good. So let's say your average is 5 points a game, and also you score 20 for 8 games. You'll have a high SE score and a high R score. Like, it just doesn't necessarily be the case. A lot of times it does work out where you're good at one, bad at the other. This is the way it works out. If you look at something like Austin Trammell, high consistency score, but also a decent SE score. So this is the B.R.O.W.S.E main page. Again, thanks for tuning in. Treadmill Talks, talking about B.R.O.W.S.E system. If you got questions, drop it in there. Going through my B.R.O.W.S.E system, which is balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement. It's a roster building management tool. Looking at it right now, this is the master list that you get. $1.99 Patreon. While supplies last, there's 25 spots. A couple of them are taking. They're going to start going. After that, it'll be $3.99 a month. Try to make it reasonable, not super priced. It's a tool you can use for your drafts, and you can use it for roster manager during the season. So this is the master list. You can scroll down, go through, click on the next page, look at 50 more, go through there. The next tool we have on here is the player comparison page. So what it has is you can compare up to 4 players at a time, look at them side by side when you're making those decisions in your draft or in a trade or on waivers. So what I did is I loaded in here what I consider to be the top 4 receivers: Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase. So if I'm in a draft, and let's say I'm at 3 or 4, let's say McCaffrey goes 1, let's say non-superflex. McCaffrey goes 1, and Gibbs or Bijan goes 2, 3, Hall goes 4. I'm in that range where I'm out of the top running backs. Maybe I'm looking at wide receivers. What this tells me is if I want the most consistent player out of this, it is Ja'Marr Chase. Based on the numbers and across the 3 statistical categories that we last looked at, Ja'Marr Chase has the higher RO score, which is reliability and opportunity. He's more reliably going to get opportunities and produce with those opportunities than Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. But his SE score, which is Sysyem, is pretty low. He just doesn't spike and excite that often. He's a 0.2. Compared to someone like Justin Jefferson, who has a 0.06. So he really wasn't. Now, part of that is Justin Jefferson's baseline is a little bit higher than Ja'Marr Chase's, so that also needs to be factored in. But if you think they're in the same tier, look at it that way. If I'm looking at this, I go, CeeDee Lamb has the highest SE score. So CeeDee Lamb has the highest spikes and excitement score out of the 4. And his RO score, his reliability and option score, is similar to that of Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So depending on the roster you want to build, and if you see all these guys in the same, which I kind of do, I see all 4 of them in the same tier, where do I go? If I was drafting and I need to make a choice, I would look at this, look at some other things. This isn't a one-stop shop for all your answers, but I think it gives you some helpful guidelines. But I see them all in the same tier, and I think projections why they're going to be the same. Now, I think that may not be the case with Justin Jefferson, new quarterback, so maybe I throw him out with J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold. Where do I go? For me, I prefer a little more consistency than anything else, which would lead me towards Ja'Marr Chase. But I look at the SE score for CeeDee Lamb and go, it's close enough in RO score that I'm willing to take the risk on the SE score of CeeDee Lamb and maybe chase that. That's just me. Depends on what you think. That's what the beauty of this is. If you are super risk averse, because I don't want to risk it, I'm not sure about Dak, all these questions, maybe you go with Ja'Marr Chase and just don't have the upside. What's also nice about, let's say I go with the CeeDee Lamb and chase the upside. Maybe when I take my second wide receiver, I take someone who just is more consistent, who has maybe a 0.5, 0.6 RO score. That's what's nice about things, is you can balance that out across things. And that's why we have this other page, which is this team tracker, where you can put your players in, and it'll give you scores. So we did it based on quarterback, running back, wide receiver, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, with a bunch of flex spots. Now, you may have more flex spots than that, so all I can fit on the page. So if you have more, I apologize. I know a lot of teams do. But you can put in, and what it'll do is it'll track your team, and you can go, hey, I built this team, and it's kind of really boom-busty, right? It's kind of got a high SE scores, really low RO scores. Maybe in the later rounds, I take a guy who's a little more consistent. For me personally, when I draft, I looked at a lot of my teams. I put them in here and realized, oh, man, I've got a lot of teams that don't have a lot of high upside. There's not a lot of big SE scores, so maybe I go out and get those guys. Now, this is a great tool, I believe. We go back to the main tab. Or best ball. I'm not a best ball player. I'm just going to put that out. I have one best ball dynasty league. I don't do a lot of underdog puppy bowls and all those things. I think they're great. I think people do after you do, this will help you in that, especially in the later rounds. So when you're looking in the 10th round, do you take someone who's a little more? Maybe you're looking for someone who has a higher SE score. That's what's nice about B.R.O.W.S.E. It allows you to do it now in your best ball drafts, in your rookie drafts, in your startup drafts, in your redraft leagues. That's what's nice about it. What is also nice is it's not just for drafts, in my opinion. Drafting is fun. We all love drafts, and this is a cool tool, and I think a great tool to help you win your drafts. But this will also help you win your league down the road in two ways. One, let's talk waivers. Let's say last year Jonathan Taylor goes down. Who's the guy? Is it Deion Jackson? Is it Zach Moss? You can put those guys in the player comparison or look them up and go, okay, maybe this guy's, I'm willing to take the risk on this guy being the bigger breakout, or maybe this guy's just more consistent. Let's take the Bengals. Let's say T. Higgins gets hurt this year. Who's going to step up in that role? Is it Jermaine Burton? Is it Andre Yosavash? Is it Charlie Jones? That's where you can kind of put in and go, this is what I think it's going to be. And you can kind of look at who may want to be more consistent now. You have a very small sample size or not a ton of huge games for Yosavash, Charlie Jones, and rookie. But you can compare the numbers and kind of go, maybe I'm willing to take the gamble on this. That's how you can use it for waivers. I also think you can use it for trades. Let's say someone's offering you a trade of Tyreek Hill for Jamar Chase. Straight up. In a redraft league. Well, maybe you want someone that's, maybe you have a team that's super consistent and you want a little more upside in a Tyreek Hill, which I believe he has a higher SE score than Jamar Chase, and you're willing to add it on. But maybe you already have a team that's a ton of SE heavy players, and you're kind of fluctuating between 100 points one week, 160 the next, 90 the next, and 150. Maybe you don't want to make the trade because you want that consistency. That's up to you. That's what's the beauty of the system. It's not going to tell you what to do. It's going to help inform your decisions based on what you want to do to make the rosters. Because let's face it, we want to have rosters that make us happy and have fun with fantasy football. Fantasy football should be fun. At the end of the day, it's a game. Have fun with it. So if fun for you is having those teams where it's, I don't know what's going to happen. I have a Devon A. Chain who could score me 50 points or could score me 2. If that's what makes you happy and you get excited for that and you love watching games because of that, then use that to get those players. If you're the guy who doesn't want to fret over your lineup on a Sunday morning or Sunday where you're watching the game because you're worried that it's the third quarter, Devon A. Chain hasn't had any touches, and you're just hoping he gets to a decent number so he doesn't disappoint, this will help you get there. I truly believe in this. Now, I spent the past 8 months building this, doing a lot of back-end stuff. I couldn't have done it on my own. I do want to give some shout-outs to Justin Bueller and Ryan Heath, Seth Keller, who helped me build, kind of work out some of the math stuff on the back end, get me this Looker studio up and running. So thank you to those guys. Joe and Steve from Front Office Pros really helped me kind of kick the tires on it. They're my friends who I met through this industry, met through the space, who helped me kind of kick the tires on it, look at it, let me know what they think of that. So thank you to those guys. Again, B.R.O.W.S.E system, roster building and management tools, balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement is what it stands for. It's the B.R.O.W.S E system. New system I just created, launched it this week. You can find it on my Twitter. I have a Patreon. Limited time right now, only $1.99 a month. So you can sign up for 1 month, use it for your draft. You can sign up for multiple months if you got drafts all summer. You can sign up now and just support me, which I totally appreciate. Had a couple people sign up who really like it, checked it out. I've given some access to some people, kind of test out. Use it for your best ball drafts. If you like it, keep it. Keep subscribing for a month. Get $1.99. Not going to break the bank. I wanted to make this reasonable since it is only one tool. Tools are not my suit to build. That's why it took me so long to build this. A lot of it was data entry and building kind of the thing, so I needed some help. But if you like it, I'm super grateful if you guys subscribe. Send your feedback, send your comments. Always appreciate those things. I'm my first subscriber the day when I launched it. And honestly, I got teary-eyed. To be honest with you, I was just super blown away that someone would be willing to pay money for something I created. So it's a labor of love that I really put my time and effort into. Hope you guys like it. Hope you guys subscribe. Check it out for at least a month. Use it for your best ball drafts. See how it goes. What we're going to do this year with it is we're going to update it every couple weeks. So as we start getting more games of data, we're going to throw it out there. So probably 4 weeks in, I will start doing some updates. I'm just going to put some numbers in so it's ready to roll. So hopefully after week 4, I can update that for you so you see more real-time R.O. and S.E scores for this season. We'll see how compared to what it looked like last season, and we'll keep building that out. We're getting more and more years. We're trying to go back and doing 2022 data for these players. Again, it's kind of hard to do. It's a lot of work to input data. I work a full-time job, have a wife and kid, so I'll just have a ton of free time where I can just sit there and enter data. But trying to do that for you. So we're going to keep it updated. Like I said, we are working on defensive players as well. So something I'm working with. This will be on Dynasty Pros, part of the Dynasty Pros membership, which is $3.99 a month. So you'll get this plus our trade calculator, which I think is super fun to use, super helpful. Our trade calculator actually balances players on Dynasty Pros, which the website's still down right now. We're hoping to have it up and running this week, obviously with Memorial Day tomorrow, pushing things back. We're hoping to have it up and running. Let me talk about the Dynasty Pros trade calculator right now. Look, you can use trade calculators. There's a ton of them. Our trade calculator is the end-all be-all? No. But what's nice about trade calculators is it gives you a frame of reference and a starting point. What we did with Dynasty Pros is added in the weighted people for you. So some trade calculators, you'll go, Josh Allen is worth 1,000 points, so I can give you 5 guys worth 200 points, and it's fair because the math equals out. Our calculator actually takes that into account and actually says, no, you need to add more because it's not fair. Quantity doesn't always equal quality. So someone like a Josh Allen actually gets a bonus when there's multiple guys on the other side. So we factor that all in. We have a cool thing. You go in there, super flex, standard, put your guys in and go, yes, it's fair, yes, no, or hey, you need to add this much in. What's nice about the Dynasty Pros trade calculator, if you play IDP, they're in there. Not a lot of trade calculators have that. If you play Devy, that is where we stand alone because we have Devy players, not just your offensive Devy, but also your defensive Devy's in there. So if you're in a Devy league, what is Quinn Ewers' trade value to Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? We have that in there. Last year, if you're going, what is Caleb Williams worth compared to Lamar Jackson? We have those in here. So that's nice. For $3.99 on Dynasty Pros, you can sign up for that once the website's up and running again. Over this week, $3.99 to get you our trade calculator plus the B.R.O.W.S.E system. I'll be releasing an article on there with all the information, kind of breaking down B.R.O.W.S system a little more. If you guys have questions about the B.R.O.W.S system, you can drop them in the YouTube chat. I got another about 15 minutes walking on the treadmill here talking football, so drop them in the chat there. We'd love to answer your questions about the B.R.O.W.S system. If you have them, check it out. If you have questions about anything, you drop them on YouTube. If you have questions after the fact, shoot me a DM on Twitter. At the DUnit13. My DMs are always open. I'm here to help, here to answer your questions. If you got questions about the B.R.O.W.S system, you've got questions about your team, your trades, I'm always here to help. Or you can just tag me in a tweet. At the DUnit13, what do you think about this trade? And I will answer your questions. I do my best to try to hop on Twitter throughout the day while I'm working. You know, if I'm walking for building, hop on there, answer a question quick. My lunch breaks, you know, my breaks, my 15-minute breaks, try to hop on there, answer questions for you guys. Because honestly, that's my goal. My goal, my job in the fantasy space is to be a resource. It's to be a resource for you for information. That's why I give you articles, I give you tweets and facts, help you make informed decisions. That's why I build things like the B.R.O.W.S system. My goal is to be a resource to help you have fun in fantasy football, whatever fun looks like for you. So if fun is making a ton of trades, I'm going to help you. If fun is winning, I'm going to help you. If fun is connecting with more people, I'm going to help you. If you're a content creator and you're like, I don't know, this is what I want to do, this is my dream, this is the passion, I'm there to help you reach that. So created the B.R.O.W.S system. I'm super proud of it. I think it's super worth the money. If I didn't build it and someone else released it, I would definitely pay $1.99 for it. I would pay probably more. That's why it's going to go up to $3.99, but I wanted to give early bird special of $1.99 a month for people who want to subscribe to B.R.O.W.S. Again, B.R.O.W.S is balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement. It's a roster building and management tool for you. Gives each player 2 scores. R.O. score, it's the reliability and opportunity score, which is how reliable are they going to be with their opportunities to get opportunities and with those opportunities. And an S.E score, so their spikes and excitement score. How often are they going to spike and excite you in your fantasy weeks compared to how often they're going to let you down? We give each player those scores. We have over 700 offensive players built into the sheet. We give them 2 scores, an RO score and an SC score, across 3 statistical categories for each player. Some there's 4. We're trying to build up more. Again, we looked at what stats were sticky, so let's go back to the beginning. We looked at what statistical categories from last year, and in general, are sticky, which means they carry over from year to year, are the most sticky per position, and use those. So it's not the same across the board. It's not like we're using rushing attempts for wide receivers, right? We're using what's sticky for wide receivers, what's sticky for wide receivers isn't necessarily sticky for tight ends. So we looked across the board at what's the most sticky stats across 3 statistical categories, at least, per position to get us our scores. Did a lot of math, standard deviation stuff. I get it. I understand I had to learn a lot about it. Don't want to bore you guys with it. But that's what makes B.R.O.W.S.E stands out across some of these other consistency guys. It's not just consistency, it's how reliable are they, which are similar but different. How reliably are they going to get opportunities? And what are they consistently doing with those opportunities? Then you have the new score, which is a spike score, a spike in the SE score, spikes in excitement. How often they're going to shine past the norm. I think that's huge, especially now for best ball. If you do best ball, underdog best ball leagues, this is the tool for you because it's going to show you those guys, early rounds, mid rounds, especially late rounds, that maybe will spike, maybe will exceed expectations in terms of week-to-week performance, overall performance, and be the guys in your best ball leagues that are going to go, hey, here's my 15th round guy. He's all sitting in my lineup 6 weeks out because he has a high SE score. Again, we went through, used 2023 data for everyone. College, the rookies, we used their college data. Then anybody that didn't have 6 games of data, so your Aaron Rodgers, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb's type people who got injured, we went back and used 2022 data to get them to 6 games. So let's say they had 2 games, Nick Chubb had 2 games, we took 4 games from 2022. Aaron Rodgers basically had 1 game. Even though he was injured, we still used it because he did play, you started him. Then we used 5 games from 2022 to build out a score. So that's how we built B.R.O.W.S.E. Again, I've been working on this. It's been in my head for a while. I vocalized it on a podcast. It was actually the Scott Fish Podathon, which is coming up in a couple months. A year ago, built the name thanks to Coupe Fiasco. Kind of inspired the name. He has this yin yang tight end and kind of this like acronym type naming system. Thought it sounded good. Kind of made it make sense. Built it out. Thought of it. Conceptualized it. Then started building it 8 months ago. Building some data. Made a lot of mistakes along the way. Fixed some things. Had to run some different math. Learn different math. And math is not my strong suit. That's why I write articles instead of doing math. But learned a lot of things along the way. Built this tool, which I think you guys are really going to like and enjoy. It's the B.R.O.W.S.E system. You can find it. It's pinned on my Twitter profile. So the D Unit 13, it's pinned there. It's in a Patreon. I believe there's still some spots left at early bird price, $1.99 a month. Want to make it reasonable for you guys. After those spots are gone, there's 25 of them. Once those are gone, it's going to go up to $3.99 a month. Again, not anything crazy. Going to be on my Patreon. If you subscribe to Patreon, you get access to me a little more. I'm being more attentive to the Patreon people. Not that I'm not attentive to people on Twitter. But if I get a bunch of questions, Patreon's going to come first. So you do get that, which is also nice. And maybe I'll throw my rankings on there, which I hate doing, but I do them a little bit. So if I have rankings, throw them there. You'll also see another way of getting my articles, that kind of stuff. Anything I do will also now go through my Patreon. So if I write an article and it's on Dynasty Bros, you'll get it on Patreon. At least a link. I want you guys to have everything I do through my Patreon. I didn't really want to set up a Patreon, but I did because I thought it was the best way to get out. Dynasty Bros site has been down, which has been another headache. The past week, we've been working through that. Getting up run. Yes, I'm using my son's water bottle with Pokemon stickers on it. So, B.R.O.W.S.E system launched this week. Hope you guys like it. I got another like 10 minutes walking on the treadmill. If you guys have questions about B.R.O.W.S.E or anything, drop it in the YouTube chat right now. I got about 10 minutes walking left. Love to answer your questions, talk to you guys. If you guys have questions after the fact, you can hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up through Patreon if you subscribe. Again, $1.99. I think it's a real good price. I'm going to show it to you one more time here. Let me present my screen. Show you the B.R.O.W.S.E system. This is the master list. So again, B.R.O.W.S.E master list. Over 700 offensive players. So what you can do is you can sort here alphabetical. You can sort by position. You can also sort by RO score. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the top RO scores. If you look at a lot of them, O'Keefe, a blocking tight end. Blocking tight end and the fullbacks always have high scores because they play a lot of downs. They're out on the field, but they don't actually get any production. They don't get any opportunities. So yes, they're on the field, but they're consistently just out there doing nothing for fantasy purposes. That's why they have our high RO scores. So if you're looking at this, the highest guy that I would consider, we got Chris Evans down there, James Mitchell, Zach Pascal, Brenton Strange, Hayden Hurst, Aaron Rodgers, high RO score, highest of any active player. So if you're looking at a late round tight end, maybe you want someone like Aaron Rodgers who has a good high RO score. Something to think about when you're drafting. You look at Aaron Rodgers, high RO score, low SE score. So what that tells me about Rodgers is he is very consistent at a 0.61. So basically 61% of his games are within his average, but only basically 11% of his games he's going to exceed that average, and not by a ton. That's basically 11% of the games he's going to be over his average compared to how often versus how often he disappoints. So if he disappoints one game, he needs 2 games to kind of counter. 1 for 1 will basically null each other out. So it really has like 2 games over and 1 game under, which again, you don't want games under. You want guys that are going to excite you and not disappoint you. I actually thought about doing B.R.O.W.S.E with the D at the end. It was like spikes, eliminate disappointment, but I left that off. We don't want to be disappointed. So that's the B.R.O.W.S.E. That's the master list. Again, over 700 offensive players right now. Looking to add defense down the road. This is the player comparison tool. You can grab up to 4 players at a time, and they'll show you their RO, reliability and opportunity score, and their SE score next to each other, all 4 players. Again, you're going to be wanting to look at players that are in similar tiers for you. I'm saying they have to be in the same tiers for everyone, but if they're in same tiers for you and they're like players for you and you can't decide, this is where I would go. Now, again, doesn't mean you should choose one of the others. Whatever roster and you want to have. So if you want to have a very glass kid boom bust roster, take SE score. If you want to have a more consistent roster, take the R score. Or you have a high SE score roster and you want to kind of balance that out. Again, balance reliability and opportunities with spikes and excitement. This lets you do this. You go, hey, I have a ton, for me personally, I always have a ton of RO people. Just the way I draft. I'm risk adverse. I don't really want the boom bust, but I will maybe throw 3 guys on my roster who have a high SE score. It just happens that way. Where I go, I'm willing to take a little bit of risk, but not a ton. Maybe I only want 3. Maybe you want 5. Maybe you want 10. Depending on how you want. That's the player comparison tool. That's what we also have. The team tracker tool where you put your team in, kind of see what your guys are looking at. So maybe you go, put in the teams you have now. If you have a dynasty team, put them in there and go, this is what I'm looking at. Oh, man, I got a ton of guys that have high RO scores, but no high SE scores. Maybe you make some trades for that. You use it for roster building with your drafts, roster management during the season with waivers and trades. That's what I like about it. It's not just a off-season August tool. It's an all-year tool that you can use. Again, $1.99. If you sign up for $1.99 a month now, you were going to be locked in that price forever. As a early bird adapter, you are locked into $1.99 for as long as you subscribe. So if you do that for years, you'll always get it for $1.99. No matter what else I add to the Patreon. If a year from now I add another tool, still $1.99 for you. After this is going to be $3.99. Hey, if I come out with maybe once Dynasty players go on, it goes up to $5.99 or $4.99. You're still locked in $1.99. That's what's nice about getting early. It's a thank you to those who want to support me, who are supporting me early. We're willing to say, Dustin, I appreciate what you did. I like what you did. I'm going to use your tool. Here's $1.99. Once you sign up, as long as you keep that going, you're locked into that price for life. So who knows where the Patreon's going to go? I had never once thought I'd do a Patreon, but I gave this tool. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth $3.99 at least. Who knows what else is going to come down the road? So $1.99 is not a bad investment, right? You guys spend $1.99 on all kinds of stuff. I've signed up for athletic.com for 99 cents a month and let that go for years, right? $1.99 a month. So you can really get the value now, support me. The money I bring in just helps me, free up some time. Who knows where this is going to lead? Who knows what else might happen on the Patreon down the road? Maybe I get some other tools built. Maybe I get rankings on there. Maybe I get some other stuff on the Patreon. I don't know. I have no real plans for the Patreon right now other than having B.R.O.W.S.E on there. But $1.99 is not a bad deal. If you're thinking about subscribing, jump in now while there's still spots left. That is B.R.O.W.S.E. So you get a master list with over 700 offensive players. I think it's like 706 total. So even your deepest of deep leagues, I got you covered. Right? If you're drafting O'Keefe, I've got you covered. If you're drafting O'Keefe in a league, you're super deep. I go way past O'Keefe. That's how deep I go. You're going to add defense eventually. Probably not for another 6 months. We're working on it. It's a lot of work. You get the player comparison tool. So when you're in your drafts and you're trying to decide who to take, you can put players in there real quick. See what you like. See who has what score, what might fit your roster, what excites you, what players you want to have on your team. Build the roster you want to build. Then you get the team tracker tool. So you can be doing both at the same time. Drafting, put the guys in as you draft them, and kind of see what your team looks like as a whole. It's a roster building and management tool. So browse, balance, reliability, and opportunities with spikes and excitement. Roster building and management tool for you guys. I appreciate you guys taking a look at that today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Get back here. Wrapping up Treadmill Talks. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Do these every week around this time, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. Again, it's just me talking while walking on a treadmill. If you guys ever have questions while I'm doing this, you can drop them in live. I'd love to answer your questions live. Definitely helps me. Definitely helps me get things rolling if I don't have anything to talk about. Otherwise, it's just me rambling, talking football, walking to the treadmill. Started these maybe 2 months ago. Wanted to find a way to get on the treadmill more consistently. Figured out two things. One thing I really love, talking football. One thing I don't love so much, walking on a treadmill. So maybe the one the other end has. I appreciate you guys tuning in. There's 71 people watching. Thank you for tuning in. Check out the B.R.O.W.S.E system. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what you guys think. Kind of in the slow period right now, fantasy football and football news. Draft's going to be in Pittsburgh in 2026. Green Bay next year. Hope you guys are enjoying your drafts. If you're in a slow draft right now, check to see if you're on the clock. Check your trades. Respond to trades, because that's annoying when people don't. Let me catch you guys on my league. I'm in the league, a charity league. Me and my buddy Steve from Front Office Pros, our co-manager team. We had the 101. We didn't do so well. It's a best ball league. Had Bryce Young and Derek Carr. It's a single QB. We actually traded out. Someone took Marv. We had the one that traded for the 102, picked up a third. Traded out of the 102 for the 108. We picked up Rashee Rice and Dalton Kincaid. Really happy that we're both Bills fans, so getting Kincaid is nice. I know I'm not as high on Kincaid as everyone else. The question is 100 targets or more this season. I think it might be under. I'm going to hedge my bets and say, if you said 110, I would definitely take the under. 100 is probably right at the line. I mean, you got to figure in 17 games. I think 100 is a good line. I think 110 is a line I would definitely take under on. So we got Dalton Kincaid. Looking to take maybe something else later on. Best slow draft. I've had one other draft. I'm only in a few leagues. I don't want to spend my time in leagues. I want to spend my time talking to you guys, answering your questions on Twitter. So check out the B.R.O.W.S.E system. Hit me up if you need anything. Drop a like and subscribe. I appreciate tuning in. Treadmill Talks every Sunday around this time. Follow me. Hit subscribe on YouTube or follow on Twitter or X. I appreciate you guys. Always reach out. We'll talk football with you guys. Talk to you guys later.